And welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. I have the esteemed honor today to welcome a 101-year-old Holocaust survivor.
Two.
So,
102.
102. I forgot the extra year. Mr. Joseph Alexander joins me today. He's going to share his story of resiliency and of moving on and through his life now, past the Holocaust, carrying it with him, I'm sure, every single day. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Tell me your story.
Okay. I'm a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I survived 12 camps. I come from a small town in Poland. My father was in business, and we had a very good life until 1939, when the Germans came into Poland. They divided Poland in two halves. One half was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany. The second half was Poland under German occupation. We lived on the part where it was annexed to the Third Reich, and we lived in a small town. And in Europe, every town has a town square, and that's where most of the business are. And we lived in the town square, one corner of the square, the second house. The third house was an uncle of mine. After a few weeks, the Germans came to town and pestered my uncle, went around the square and told the people they have 10 minutes to get their possessions and get out in the middle of the square, and they took them away. For some reason, I'll never know why, they left the three houses where we were the second house. Then the rumor started that they're going to come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So my dad had three sisters living 25 kilometers before Warsaw, which were the other half of Poland. So that's how we're not going to wait for them to come and give us 10 minutes. So he got out and we rented a wagon. We had deep horse-drawn wagons, about 6-8 feet deep, and packed up most of the stuff from the store. And you put a couple of pieces of bedding, or a couple pieces of furniture on top, because from our part to the other part, you had to go through a border. And my parents and one sister and one brother, and they left. I remained with two other sisters, and we loading up a second wagon. In the meantime, the Polish people from around town were coming to town to buy anything they can get, because they're taking all the business people out. So I sold a man a bicycle and a boat of shirt material. On the way home, he had to pass the police station, so he got stopped, and they wanted to know where did he get that material. So he said, I bought it, and showed me a receipt. He said, I don't have a receipt. Then go bring the person who sold it to you. So he came back to me and he said, you have to go with me to the police station. Not that they're going to come here. So I went with him to the police station. He asked me, did you sell him that? I said, yes. Why didn't you give him a receipt? I said, we in Poland, we didn't give receipts. So I took the boat material, smacked the guy, let him go, and let me go. And I went back, and my sisters waited for me, and we took off with the second wagon. We came to a little town named Blunia, about 25 kilometers before Warsaw. So we come there. Their life was still going on almost normal. People were still in business, but everybody had to go to work. So being there for about 3 weeks, I went to my first camp. That was in 1939. I went to a camp where we were building a dam. You stayed in the water up to the knee without boots. And that was October, November. That's almost winter time already. So I was working there for about 6 weeks, and I got blood poison. I got sores on my arms, on my legs. So one weekend I went home, and I said, I'm not coming back. So Monday morning, the police came to look for me. So my dad said, he's not here, he's supposed to be in the camp. So I stayed away from home for a while. We were living with my cousins, my friends. And that was the time they started in Warsaw to build a wall where the Warsaw Ghetto was going to be. After they finished building the wall, they came out with an order. All the Jewish people who live within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Warsaw had to move into the Warsaw Ghetto. So we moved into the ghetto. You can imagine how miserable, how terrible it was, because the area they picked out was a small area, and they put in over 400,000 people. You walked out in the morning from the house, there were dead people on the streets, on the sidewalks, everywhere. So I lived in the ghetto for a while, and then we found out that back home, nothing has changed since we left. So my parents decided for an older sister and a younger brother and I, we should go back home. To go back home, we have to get out of the ghetto, so we paid off the guard at the gates to get out. And we got out, and my sister and brother said, they'll take one street, and I'll take another street, and we'll walk through town, and we'll meet on the outskirts of town. I've walked for about 3 blocks, and a Polish teenager comes over and said, give me some money, I'm going to report you. So I figured I gave him some money, and I got rid of him, and I kept walking. But he got on the streetcar, rode the streetcar for a few blocks, and comes over again, give me some more money. So this time I gave him some more money, but I changed the street, and I lost him. I walked to the outskirts of town, and I met my sister and brother, and we went home. So we came back home. Nothing has changed since we left. But it lasted 3 days I was free for. After being there for 3 days, they came out all the Jewish men from 16 to 60 reported to the schoolhouse. So I reported the schoolhouse, and off I went to the camps. The first camp I went to, we were building a dam. We were cutting down hills, and it had little electric cars. You fill them up, and they take them another place, and they dump it. But the work we were doing was very hard work. We had to use picks to loosen up the ground, and the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning, and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. You came back from work, you got a soup. It was either the peels from potatoes or spinach. Doing that kind of work on this food, you couldn't survive. I was in a camp where there's a city of Poznan, and there were camps in the city and around the city. So every morning they took dead people out from the camp, and the same thing happened at other camps. They combined two, three camps into one. So after this first camp, I moved to another camp, and I was laying cobblestones on the streets. That was a short time. Then I moved to another camp, and we were laying sewers, cement pipes on the ground. After that, I moved to a camp. I was a roofer, doing roofs. These camps didn't last too long. Then I moved to another camp. We were building an airport. I was laying railroad tracks. Being 7 camps, a train arrived, and it wasn't a passenger train, a cattle car train, where they put 30, 40 people to one boxcar. And the destination we were going takes about 5, 6 hours at the most. We were riding around for 3 days, no food, no water, no facilities. And that was only standing room only. So after 3 days, we arrived in Auschwitz. There's a little town named Oświęcim. So the train stopped downtown, and they opened the doors from the train. About 30-40% of the people were dead on the train already. Whoever could walk, you walked out, you were lined up in rows of 5. And I met Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the Doctor of Dead. He selected people for human experiment or for the gas chamber. So Dr. Mengele said there are 6 kilometers to walk to the camp. He's going to select some people to go to the left. People on the left are going to be taken on truck. So he went through and picked out sick people, old people, young kids. I was a little guy, told me to go to the left too. But if I would come from home, I wouldn't know the difference. But I was in 7 camps, and every camp I had to go to work. I tried to get in with the biggest, strongest man. And here I look around, sick people, old people. That's not the kind of people I like to be with. But my luck was, it was after midnight. If it would have been daytime, I don't think I could have done it. When Dr. Mengele moved further down, I ran back to the other side. If I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because the people taken on trucks went straight to the gas chamber. So I ran back to the other side and walked to the camp. I got a shower, and I came out of the shower, and I got to see a tattoo. Well, you can see it. 142584. From that moment on, you had no name anymore. That was your name. I got a tattoo, and there's Auschwitz too, called Birkenau. I walked over to about 3 kilometers apart. I walked over to Birkenau. I was in Birkenau for quite a few weeks. And I saw Dr. Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau, but it was daytime and I was far away from where he was. So I got through. But in Birkenau, I saw in Birkenau people running to the electric fence to get electrocuted. I saw people being beaten to death because they gave up. And that was a time, that was April of 1943, there was a big uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto. After the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, they said they need a big transport, but they didn't want to take anybody from Poland. They only wanted Hungary, Greece, or Italy. But at the end, they were short about 300 people, short of the quota they want. So now we take some people from Poland. So I report, and I was going back to the Warsaw Ghetto for the second time. So we come back to the ghetto, there wasn't one house left. All the houses were burned out, just the remaining walls. And our job was to take down those walls brick by brick and clean them up and put them up in 6 to 8 feet high. And in the daytime, then we had no barrack, no place to stay. So we gave us some prefabs. We had to put together our own barrack. And we didn't have any facility yet. So the typhus broke out. Anybody who reported to the hospital, I never knew anybody who came out of the hospital. Typhus is you get very high temperature, high fever. I got it, but I didn't report to the hospital because I had what we called a capo, like a foreman. He was a middleweight German man, but he was also a prisoner. So if I had it, I was sitting behind the stacks of bricks like this for about 3 days until I got over the temperature and went back to work. So I worked for a short time, and one night the Polish underground attacked our camp trying to free us. But they were fighting unsuccessful. So the next morning they closed the camp and they took us out, and we had to jog to get out of the city. They said they were afraid the underground may attack us in the city. So we got out of town and they put us up on a big field where farmers graze their cows and the ground is very moist. So whatever means you have, a knife, a spoon, anything, you could dig up some mud. And you took the bottom of your shirt and you squeezed the mud to get a little water. So we had a little water and we were walking. So we come to a city, there was a river. So they let us go to the river to get some water. Two of our people went a little too far in the river. They thought maybe they want to escape, get out on the other side. They got shot, got killed right in the river. So we had some water and we were walking. Come to the next town, was the same river. This time they said only 100 people at a time can go to the river to get some water. So we got some water and we were walking, and that day was a very heavy rain coming down. When we were walking, you could hardly walk, you were soaking wet. Until we came to a railroad station, stayed overnight, and the next morning the same train arrived, and that time I was 3.5 days on the train without food, without water, nothing, and we were going to Germany. Okay, went to Germany to a camp named Dachau. Dachau was the first camp Hitler built for political prisoners. Then he turned it into a concentration camp with the gas chambers. So I went to Dachau. About 2 weeks I didn't do anything because they are establishing 12 camps, all by number, from 1 to 12. So after 2 weeks I was sent to camp number 1, and I was digging potatoes for a farmer. That lasted about 3 weeks. Then I was moved to a camp about 50 kilometers from Dachau to a city of Landsberg am Lech, and that was camp number 7. Camp number 7 was a small camp, only about 250 people, and that was the only camp I was where women wasn't the same camp, but they were blocked off one corner of the camp where we went to work together. So camp number 7, we were a small group. We were over 4 years in the camps already. So we had the privilege of getting the better jobs. So friends of mine was working in the kitchen, and 3 of them were police in the camp. And I had a group of 10, 5 boys and 5 girls, work in the kitchen for the German guards outside the camp. And there were 2 men in charge of the kitchen, but they were very good to me. Every day I went back to the camp. I took some food back for my friends. Then we always had some soup left over, so we had some big milk cans. So I took a milk can, I put it in. The next morning, people were going to work. They had to pass by our kitchen, so I stopped them and I gave them some food. A couple of times, the officer in charge of the guards complained that I'm holding up the people going to work. But my people told me, don't worry, let them talk, do what you're doing. And that lasted till about April 28. All the 12 camps had to go back to Dachau. Came back to Dachau, we stayed overnight, and the next morning, what they called, we were going on a death march. They're supposed to take us into the mountain. There's a ski resort named Garmisch in Germany, and they're supposed to kill us in the mountain. But we walked for about 2 days, and we knew we're not going to be walking too far because we could hear the fighting, so we knew that the American troops are not far behind us. So 2 days, we crossed a little bridge, and the little bridge was blowing up. So our group was divided in 2 halves. I was in a half where we're in a village named Königsdorf, and there was a little forest in the village. So they took us into that forest, and they asked for volunteers to take the sick people. Excuse me.
There's some water.
Took the sick people and to the farmers and put them into the barn. One of the volunteers was a friend of mine. On the way back, they found a dead horse in the snow, so they cut off some pieces from the horse, and this was a friend of mine here. That was, I don't know, here. Here, this guy.
I'll help you. There you go.
His name was Joe Buddha. So he came back with a piece of horse meat, and he said, do something. So he made a fire, and I was barbecuing. And that was the best meal we had in a long time. And during the night, the gas disappeared. So the next morning, the German police came in the morning about between 8 and 9 o'clock, and they took us into that village, and they disappeared. So we're just walking around the village to see what's going to happen next. So we walked around until about between 12 and 1 o'clock. American tank moved in, and we were liberated. And behind the tank, were the American troops. So they tried to block off the village, not to let anybody out. But we were a group of 9 of us. We owned the camp already over 5 years. We didn't want to get blocked in. So we broke through and started to walk to see where the next town is. So we walked for about 1 or 2 kilometers, and there was a bakery. So we got into the bakery, and we got a bread. Everybody had a bread, you were okay. And we kept walking. We came to a town named Bad Telz, and we see 3 American soldiers. But they were Czechoslovakian descent. They were walking, but they couldn't. They were holding on to each other. They were so drunk that they could hardly walk. But I guess the clothes we were wearing, they asked, "Are you Polish?" I told them yes. So they said, "Come on," and they took us into an underground bunker. You couldn't see the end of it. So first thing, we changed clothes. And everybody took a backpack and put some food in. And there was a big row of bicycles. So they chained up the chain. They broke the chain, and everybody got a bicycle. And now we have to find a place to stay. Because when the American troops came in behind the tank, they brought all the people into that city. It used to be a German Air Force base. They made a DP camp. But we didn't want to go to the camp yet. So we're trying to get out where we were, but we couldn't get out because it was after 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock was curfew. So we hopped over about 3 or 4 fences, remember, and we came to a German inn where it was taken over by the American troops, and in the back of the inn was an empty house. So we moved into that house. Stayed in the house about 10 days, and then they came out and said anybody who lives outside the camp has to move into the camp. So we moved into the camp, and we were taken back to Munich, which is the capital of Bavaria, to another DP camp, but you could live at the camp or you can go any place you want. You are free. So I lived at the camp there about 3 days, and some friends of mine and I decided to go back to the city of Landsberg, where camp number 7 was. And there was that time was a lot of DP camps in Germany. Landsberg was one of the biggest. So I went to the camp and I registered. They gave me a room. And I stayed overnight. The next morning, I moved out about 7 kilometers from town to a farm, and I lived in a farmhouse. I lived in a farmhouse. Let me take a thing.
Sure. Please.
Excuse me. So I lived in the farm for about 6 weeks, and I decided to go back to Poland, to my hometown, to go to my house to see if any of my family survived. Because when I got out of the Warsaw Ghetto, I left my parents, 2 sisters, and 1 brother in the Warsaw Ghetto. Until today, I don't know what happened to them. So I went back to the house. So some survivors were living on the 2nd floor in my house. That the 1st floor were Polish people. So the Polish people on the 1st floor asked me if I'm going to stay, don't move out. I said, no, don't bother. Because at that time, it was very bad for some of the survivors who came back, that they killed a lot of survivors. Because when they took the Jews out of the homes, the people moved in, and now some of the survivors come back that didn't want to give up the homes, so they were killing a lot of survivors. So I told the Polish people, no, I'm not going to stay. And they told me 1 cousin of mine survived, but he was in a different town. That's him right here. We had the same last name. His name was Mark Alexander. So he was in a different town. So I went and I got him, and we went back to Germany. We lived in Germany. At that time, that was the safest place you could be, because Germany was occupied by the American troops. So I went back to Germany. I lived in Germany for 4 more years after I was liberated, because I couldn't go any place. I didn't have a passport, so I had to wait in some country up and south. So after 4 years, Canada said they're going to take some people. So, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You want more water? We can.
No, okay. So Canada said, so we go and register, then you have to wait until they call you. Took a long time, I didn't hear anything. Then a friend of mine lived in the next village, so he came and said, now you can go to Munich, Munich was the capital of Bavaria, and there you can register to go to America. So when I registered, it took about 2 weeks. I got a notice to go get checked out by the American doctor and then the FBI to check you out. And then I got a note to go to, there's a port of Bremenhaven, where the boat was, to go to get the boat to come to America. So I got on the boat, and I came to California, came to New York on May 30th, 1949. Then when I came to New York, everybody had to have a sponsor. Either had some relatives here or an organization to sponsor you. I didn't have any relatives here, so I was sponsored by a Jewish organization named Joint, and my contract was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I went to Harrisburg. I got a job for a man who had a cleaning store and tuxedo rentals. I got a job as a tailor. And the man's name was Max Kaplan. A father couldn't be better than this man was to me. So I was there, and then later my cousin, who had a cousin in Santa Monica, so he came later. And then he told the cousin that we were the only 2 survivors from both of our families. So the uncle called me that I should come to California so we can be together. So in 1950, I came to California, and I'm still in California now. And before you know, I was also in 3 camps. I had to watch people being hung. People trying to escape, and they got cut. And then on Sunday, we had to gather around watch them being hung. I had to watch 3 hangings. So that's it. Now I'm in California.
Now you're in California. Now you're with me in Miami. Thank you. 80 years after liberation. 80 years after liberation. What's that like to tell your story, knowing that you're part of that history?
Well, I tell my story.
Please. There's a lot to say.
There's only a few survivors left, so we have to tell our story. Because, 6 million and 1.5 million children were murdered by the Nazis. So we have to talk for them. They can't talk. So let the people know what happened to prevent another Holocaust. Because I talked to public schools, the middle school and the high school students. I was told that 70% of those kids never heard about the Holocaust. So I talked to them, and there's another anti-Semitism going on in the Holocaust deniers. I call the Holocaust deniers, they're crazy. I told the kids, don't listen to them, because the evidence is still in existence today. You go to any camp, Auschwitz, Dachau, Treblinka, Majdanek, the gas chambers and the ovens are still there. You go there today, you see buses, people coming from all over the world to witness them. That's why I call the Holocaust a liar. They're crazy. And don't listen to them.
Flash forward. Here we are, October 7th. Recent
That's
events. Right. Never again. What happened? How do you, as a Holocaust survivor, process what happened to innocent children, women being raped and murdered? We have hostages that just came back that look emaciated like they did coming out of the Holocaust. How do you, as a survivor, wrap your head around that? What do you think, and how do you process that, knowing that this is another kind of genocide of hatred of anti-Semitism for our world?
Well, that's how it started in Germany. Where Hitler came to power, is the first thing. Jews couldn't go to schools. Jews couldn't practice medicine or law. And that's how, and whenever you went to any building you went to in Germany, it had a sign, Jews verboten, Juden verboten, that Jews couldn't enter. So that's how it started in Germany. Then we had the Kristallnacht, we call it, the broken glass in Germany, where 30,000 Jews were arrested. They burned down the 140 synagogues. And that's how it started.
And when you go back and you tell your story, and you talk about Mengele, when you were in front of him, what's that like? What is that like to tell me, our audience, the story? Do you go back to that place, or do you just tell it as a story?
No, I've been back several times.
You've gone back?
Yes. The first time we actually went back there was in 2004 with my girlfriend here with the river. We went back the first time. We came back, went back to Auschwitz, went to Dachau, and people would ask me, why did you come back?
Why did you come back?
Because I told them I came back because I survived. Hitler didn't.
What was going on in your head? Why were you the lucky one? Was it your resilience? Was it, I just don't want to give up, I have something to fight for? What was it that you think set you apart? Because you mentioned that you were supposed to go on the other line with Mengele and you snuck away, and then there were people that were feeding you on the side to help you along. What was it that made you survive that moment, and for me
Well,
to celebrate
go-
your 102nd birthday today?
Go to the other line. I think God was with me. God told me to go to the other line, and I was determined to survive. I've asked my kids at the high schools, when I tell them that I saw people in Birkenau, people running to the electric fence to get electrocuted or beaten to death. Did they ask me something, did you ever think of giving up? I said, no. I never lost faith. I never stopped believing in God. And I said, I may have a bad day today, but I hope tomorrow it will be a better day. But never give up.
That's beautiful. And how was it when you learned that your family was no longer alive? You had waited you were in many concentration camps for a long
12. I was
for a
in 12
long period
camp.
of time. Did you think that there would be a meeting afterwards?
I was hoping, but it didn't happen.
And you as a
I've
orphan,
lost my parents and 5 siblings, plus aunts and uncles and cousins, 100 of them.
so how did you navigate your way? How did you navigate?
I was determined.
There we are with your resiliency again.
Yeah, I was determined to survive.
Mm. And you did whatever you needed to do.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. You're living in California.
Yeah.
What's life like now?
Good. California's good. It's nice. I can't complain. I had a good life. Still have a very good life.
What were some of the high points?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the high points? What are things that made you light up, made you excited? What makes you excited now?
Well, I'm excited. Well, I have a daughter and a son and a grandson. That's something. And I have a nice girlfriend. Anyway, so life couldn't be better.
You want to come on here just for him to say, I think he wants to show you off.
Very proud of this man. He's really accomplished quite a bit. And I've learned so many lessons from him. And he continues to teach. And just by living, and people follow his example. And he's helped so many. And so many kids have written him tens of thousands of letters saying, and now after I heard you, and that is very gratifying, and it makes him feel good, and also it's good for our society in whole. So keep up the good work. We're planning 103.
103, 120, right? 120. What's that like being in a relationship with him and the history and having and all that he's gone through, and you being side by side with him now?
Well, my history is not like that because I was American. My mother was born in America. My grandmother, my great grandmother came in the 1880s
Come
from
closer.
Russia, and so he was just a fount of information. And I still don't stop asking him questions. And it's been a wonderful education for me. Sometimes it's a little challenging, but we get along because we have the same values. And I respect him very much, and I think he is doing a wonderful job. I see the results.
Thank
In
you.
2014, I was invited by the German government to come back to celebrate 70 years the liberation of Dachau. And I met and I talked to...
I think we have a picture of her. But there's some pictures that you're holding up, but I also think we're going to get it for you in a second. Oh my gosh, look at that, the Chancellor, Merkel.
Yeah, that's right.
So tell me about what that was like for you.
It was nice. I met her and I talked to her. She's there. I talked to her in Dachau.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And what did you say to her?
What I said to her, she was good for Israel. She was helping Israel. So I told her I appreciate what she was doing for Israel, and she should continue to help Israel. That's what I told her.
The time,
So she said she will.
and she kept the promise.
Yes.
Good, good. So in the minutes we have left,
Then
what is the message you would like to impart to our audience, or even to a bigger, broader audience, about what you went through, what's going on in today's events, and the message to the world?
message to the world is just be kind to people. Treat everybody the same way you like to be treated.
Mm.
So, and just love each other.
And you were saying, you were quoted, I saw in one of a recent interviews, you said, "I don't hold a grudge."
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't call a grudge, because if you carry a grudge, it makes yourself sick and doesn't help anything.
Mm.
So why carry a grudge?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have a little surprise for you today. With me in the studio here is Rabbi Ginsburg, and I want to bring him on.
Before you do,
Oh, before I do,
show you
it's his
something else.
interview, okay?
Here, every year, you can see here, I get New Year's card from Dachau.
I have it here. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it. There we are. And why is this significant for you? Why is it significant? Tell me about the significance.
Well, it's a New Year's card from Dachau.
That here you are. You have survived.
I
You're
was
celebrating the holidays.
That's right. We were back last year, the year before, and now they're trying to get me back again for the 80th this year.
Are you going?
80 University. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Okay, all right. But we have here a wonderful moment going to happen. Again, I'd like to bring in the Rabbi Ginsburg. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a little surprise for you, Mr. Alexander.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem shalom.
So we're going to put the fill in.
Sure.
First, we're going to put tzedakah. I'm going to put some tzedakah here. Fold it.
Rabbi, talk about the significance of providing tzedakah right now, what you're doing, please.
Tzedakah is when you give charity, and when you give to others, you open a channel of blessings. So before you pray for yourself, you want to open that channel of blessings so your prayers will be accepted. That's the importance of tzedakah.
And what are we doing now?
So right now we're going to put the fill in, which
Okay.
he wants to put more tzedakah. He wants more channels of blessings.
This is beautiful. What a moment.
We don't go by a day without giving charity, even a small amount, but every day. So we're going to put the fill in, which has the prayers, the same prayers that we have in the mezuzah. And we're going to put it on our left hand next to our heart. And then we're going to put it on our head next to our brain. And we balance our emotions and our intellect. And this is very, very special, putting the fill in right on by his numbers. So usually we do it at bar mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
But we get to do it today on our set. This is a wonderful moment. I'm so glad we're all sharing this together.
To the blessing, Baruch,
Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah lehaniach tefillin.
So we wrap it. Tell me.
So we wrap it 3 times. He cannot talk while he's doing it. So 3 times here is the letter Shin, which has the name of God.
4.
And here we do it 7, representing the 7
5.
skies.
6. 1 more. 7. And then
7 heaven between us and God. And we draw down the blessing from God through all the heavens, through the 7 heavens.
And now it's put on the head. For what reason?
To connect our emotion with our intellect. So here by the head, and here's the yarmulke. You look like a king.
Yeah.
He is a king.
Gonna say with me, Shema,
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch,
Baruch
Shem,
atah, Shem kavod malchuso leolam vaed. Ve'ahavta eis Adonai Elohecha, b'chol vavcha, b'chol nafsha, b'chol ma'adecha.
V'hoyu,
והיו הדברים אשר
האלה אשר
נויכי
נויכי מצווך
היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבונך, ודיברת בם בשבתך ובעשיך, ולכתך בדרך, ושכבך בקמך, וספתם על מזוזות בעשיך על ידיך, ותבויס בין עיניך, וספתם על מזוזות בעשיך ובשריך.
There's no one more holy than a person that went through the camps and still believes in God. You went through camps 12 times. So I'm asking you to give me a blessing, and through that you're going to give a blessing to the whole community. Please give me a blessing.
יברך אדוני וישמרך.
Amen.
יואר אדוני שם שלום. שהחיינו וקימונו והגיונו לזמן הזה.
Amen. He bless the whole community. We should only have health and praying for all the hostages to come back home safely. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
that's what I wear. That's why I wear this here.
And I want to thank you for being with me today. I'm Fara Sax.
want to show you.
Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And he's wearing for the hostages, as are we. Bring them home now. I'm Israel Chai. Until next time.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Am
Yisrael
Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai.
הוא אבינו חי,
הוא אבינו חי, הוא אבינו, עוד אבינו, עוד אבינו חי. עם ישראל, עם ישראל, עם ישראל 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 חי.